How's it going, everybody? I want to talk a little bit more about the topic of how a hero should be released. Look a bit at both sides of this coin. Because depending on the angle you look at it from, be it as a player or as a person that wants to maximize sales numbers or as someone that just wants to always criticize something, both approaches offer different benefits but at the same time also carry risks. It is one of these typical scenarios where you can never satisfy everybody. Well, it's more like you will always alienate one group of people. There is obviously the third option of releasing a hero in a perfectly balanced state so they don't require any buffs or nerfs, but we all know that this is wishful thinking. And I don't want to limit this to For Honor. Every game that releases new heroes, weapons, vehicles or whatever does face this problem. And as we know, the definition of balanced varies greatly among the player base. Kyoshin is a perfect example, as I've seen plenty of players tell me that he is in an almost perfect state. I also think that this is quite a good timing to have this discussion now. We've had an insanely strong version of a hero released in the form of Griffin, and we could observe the reaction of the community. And now, we're not even a week into Kyoshin's release, and from an objective point of view, this hero is a bit lackluster. So it should be fresh in people's minds how each of these releases felt. Now then, just as a little disclaimer, the points I'm going to bring up are just my personal thoughts behind this and what I've experienced over the years, or rather decades of playing video games of all sorts. I'm in no way claiming that my conclusions are correct, as I need insight to numbers to confirm them that developers will probably never give out to the public. You can only get so much out of the annual reports. With that out of the way, let's pose the question. Should you release the hero in a strong or in a weak state? Let's start with the strong one, as it is the more polarizing one of the two. More people are able to tell if something is too strong than too weak, I think. A big part of live service games is that continuous support and addition of new content. Over that time, new technologies are being tested and developed. So, a feature that wasn't possible at the time of release does become available, let's say, 2 years in. This is exactly what is supposed to happen in these types of games. But here you run into the risk of power creep. Yes, we need to discuss this term. There is no two ways about it. There are a few definitions available, so let's just take the one from Wikipedia. The situation where updates to a game introduce more powerful units or abilities, leaving the older ones underpowered. In most cases, the term is used with a negative connotation. Something new and powerful is introduced and is, at that time, only available to one or a few heroes, and people will naturally complain about it. But as I said just a minute ago, this is also the natural progress. You cannot just introduce additional heroes, abilities, weapons or whatever that offer absolutely nothing new. But if you do implement something new and powerful, power creep is being thrown into your face. It is also very likely that simply because of the fact that something is new and untested, that it can come out as too strong. There is no prior experience, and a lot of the times it's not immediately obvious how something will fare once it's given out to the players. We'll talk more about that once we get to the other side of the argument. Another upside to paid content being strong is obviously that it will boost sales. Up to a certain point at least. I think we've all fallen for it at least once. You try a new game, you like it, and then all of a sudden you realize that it's just massively pay to win. You could probably be persuaded to drop a few euros here or there, but if it's just completely unreasonable, then it will backfire and you'll have a mass exodus of players. Or if that doesn't happen, you have a FIFA situation where you can just milk your gullible player base to no end and proceed to release subpar other video games because it doesn't matter because your one sports franchise carries your whole company. What a business model. But I digress. The point I was trying to make is that sometimes it just so happens that something gets released too strong. To some degree, it's unavoidable that it will happen at some point. Question here is now whether we can claim that it was done on purpose. But let's look at the other approach, releasing something too weak, because I think this way of introducing new content is what is very often being done on purpose. I know that I've said this wasn't the case with Kyoshin, so let me explain and then give you an example. As I've already hinted at before, when you implement new features into an already running system, you can predict ahead only so far. There will always be unexpected interactions or combinations of things that you didn't anticipate. It also takes time to discover these things. Sometimes it happens on day one and everyone is, how the fuck have they not thought of this? And then the next time it takes us weeks to discover something and it's the same sentence again. How the fuck have we not thought of this sooner? Well, slightly different. Take Shugoki for example. When the testing ground was around and then eventually introduced to the live game, we knew that the hero was good. But over time it became clear that he is now absolute S tier. Players need to acclimatize to new things, experiment with it, and sometimes this process is quick and other times it can take weeks or even months. When you get something new to play with, nobody quite knows what to do just yet. Moves that won't work in 2 weeks can make everyone struggle the first few days. The win rate of new heroes can be through the roof and completely skew any data that you collect for it. Well, not for us because single pick is obviously too foreign a concept for the average player, but you do get my point, right? What you struggle with today, you will easily handle once you've encountered it just often enough. Or at least that is what's supposed to happen if the player shows a willingness to improve. And even if they don't, there's only so much conscious resisting they can do until their subconscious stops them from making the same mistake over and over again. What this results in is that the developers have a clearer picture of the power level of a newly introduced hero after a few weeks have passed. A new hero is naturally stronger in the beginning, but its true potential and power level will be revealed at a later point. So for a hero not to be completely unbearable to fight, developers opt for the cautious approach. This is the only legit reason why you would want heroes to be released in a weaker state. It's not because it's easier for you to deal with it then. It's not about the player being able to turn off their brains and still win. That's not it. Because the goal has not changed. The goal is to introduce a new, viable hero that is fun to play and play against. If it is a trash can that is only fun to play against, then this might please some parts of the player base, but it ultimately failed as a viable pick in the end. So while we have a lot of selfish reasons for why we want heroes to be released either strong or weak, we can't lose sight of what the developers want to achieve. The amount of hype created for Kyoshin in the beginning was quite formidable. Now imagine what it would have looked like if players that returned to the game because of the hype got to play a much better functioning version of the hero. If comments from content creators that they've seen were overly positive, sales numbers would have probably been even better. All in all, it's not an easy job for developers to hit the sweet spot, and while we complain a lot, no matter what happens, we can still give feedback to improve the current state of heroes. This is not something permanent. Whether fixes come in an adequate time frame is for each one to decide for themselves. But as I've pointed out in the last video, Kyoshin is far from a lost cause. Feel free to share your view on things here. I hope the video was interesting. Thanks for watching. Laters everybody.